Hello, everyone. This is Dallas McClain from Biohackers Magazine. We are here at the Biohacking Congress in Las Vegas. Very excited to learn from a very wide range of professionals this weekend in biohacking, doctors, healthcare in particular. And we are going to look forward to the next Congress in June 11th and 12th in Boston. So be sure to check out biohackingcongress.com to learn more info there and get your tickets. I am here with Dr. Patrick Porter, the founder of BrainTap, and we're very excited to learn more about him. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
We're very excited to have you, sir. And I wanted to talk a little bit about your company, BrainTap in particular, but more so first on what got you interested and why is this your mission to bring this to the forefront?
Well, my dad got help with a technology-driven meditation back in the 70s. So I actually was brought up doing something similar to what I'm doing today. I still don't feel I've worked a day in my life, helping people to get better brain function because I had a problem. I was held back in second grade. I was told I couldn't learn that well. Of course, I have a PhD now, and I was an honor roll student after doing this. And I've always wondered how can I, because it helped me to balance my brain, how can I bring technology to the world that can help more people? And so we have a mission to help a billion brains, and I think we can do it now that we can scale with technology. You know, it's hard to do that if you're just holding classes where you have 30 or 40 people in a room and you're teaching them how to meditate. And so we've now elevated that message to brain fitness because it's not just about meditation. People get confused about meditation, and to be very honest, most people don't do it right. So they don't get the benefits that they could derive from it because they're impatient. You know, everybody wants. That's why we call it biohacking, right? They want it right now. They want to hack that
Right.
time limit.
Instant gratification.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Very cool. So to explain a little bit to the viewers who may not know, BrainTap is a headset that the viewers or anyone would wear that works with sound and light to put you into a state where the brain waves are functioning better and your brain is more healthy. Can you expand on that a little?
Yeah, we have a proprietary algorithm. We started out in the labs in the 80s actually just using sound. And because our ears take in 25,000 pieces of information every second, everyone has great hearing. It's their filtering that has a problem. Just like when you're looking at a speaker, you can hear them, and if you're not looking at them, you don't hear them. You know, if somebody's blocking your path, your eyes are 30% of your hearing. So we wanted to introduce how could we keep the retinal, the vision open. So we started using retinal flashing, which is your eyes are closed, but the optic nerve stays open and available. And if you don't, most people, when we have them on QEEG, when they're meditating, they actually, when they close their eyes, they shut down 30 to 40% of their brain. So we want the brain to be awake, alert, and conscious. Now, once you learn to master meditation, the brain can stay awake because you're doing maybe breath exercises, different things you can do to do that. But what we found was if you use the retinal flashing, then we found out, hey, we can broadcast frequencies in the ear that also feed energy to the brain. Because the other side of benefit is that you need energy to make change. So if you don't have energy, it doesn't matter if you're meditating or what you're doing, the body actually gets more stressed. So for real recovery to happen, so when we included light frequencies, not just some people out there might know that like blue light's 470 nanometer. Ours is tuned blue light. It's very healing. We've done a couple of different studies on macular degeneration and actually showed it heals the eyes. So if those people out there saying blue light isn't the bad guy. It's dirty blue light that's the bad guy. And it's also green light. It's yellow light. It's not, but blue light gets the bad. But I can tell you right now, blue light isn't a problem. We live in a blue light planet. So we need blue light. If you don't get blue light, you can't reset your mitochondria. You can't reset your sleep rhythms and cadence. So what we did was we started studying the end result, not just, there's a lot of people out there take isolated events and say, oh, blue light's bad or this is bad. No, everything in moderation is okay,
Right.
and then too much of anything is bad. So what we said is how can we mix these light, sound, and vibration, and we can also use words. Now with this, what we know about the genome, we can actually change the expression of 2,300 gene expressions just by the words we choose. So like positive psychology, using positive tones, they know that changes it. They know that we are communicating, even though we're doing this over video and things, if they're personally here at the event, they could share in something called biophotic exchange because we're all sharing that. Most people don't understand that our bodies actually emit infrared light. every person emits light between 800 nanometer light and 850 nanometer light all the time. So that's why some people are healers. They now showing that. So we want to know, how can we increase the mitochondrial energy? Well, light is the most underprescribed nutrient. So we started with sound, which also builds energy. For people that don't know how the cellular structure works, there's actually something called a chromophore. It's like a battery at the cell level that holds the charge for producing ATP. So if you don't have that, you can't start the Krebs cycle and get all the energy that we need. Doesn't matter what nutrients. That's why a lot of people will take nutrients, and if they're in a high stress scenario and they haven't downregulated their parasympathetics, to get into parasympathetics, their body can't digest. So all of this kind of plays into it. How do we get the body into the right setting? We have to relax it. Light and sound vibration is one way that we use with BrainTap. And then what's the message? And then we've got to change it up. With neuroplasticity is the key here, and that's really energy. So they're measuring energy in the brain. The more energy, the more neuroplasticity, the better it functions, the better memory, concentration, and focus. And so we're feeding the brain that information. Then we're going to give it time to work itself out. But the other thing with BrainTap, so that people understand it, it's not just one size fits all. Like a lot of meditation people think is one size fits all. Mm-hmm. We're actually a transitional therapy. So in the morning, you wake up, you're not feeling energized, we'll listen to one of our digital coffee sessions. We call it, the AM sessions. We're actually going to stimulate a specific brainwave called SMR, sensory motor rhythm. That's the one, as you get better looking and more intelligent with age, atrophies. So it also has to do with balance in the vestibular system. So as people age, they lose their balance. But we've actually shown we did a balance tracker study that showed just by increasing SMR frequency in the brain, they became more balanced. They weren't as uncoordinated and things like that.
So during those sessions, and that increases the SMR frequency, but is that something that goes throughout the duration of the day, or do you have to come back and do another session?
Well, our brainwave, think of a brainwaves almost like a dial on a clock.
Okay.
Throughout the day, we should wake up. If you're regulating perfectly, you'll wake up in the morning with about 45% beta, which is the wide awake state where we're talking now. But you're always going to have other brainwaves going. If you have we need a balanced brainwave. But what we find, even here at the conference, one of the nice things, if you come to Boston and you can get a scan, we can show you where your brain's at. We find that about 90% of the people we scan are over 70% of their brains in delta while they're awake. So what this is telling us is they have a lot of inflammation or maybe traumatic brain injuries. So we need to move them off that, because if that's the way it works, if you're the type of person that throughout the day it just seems like the weight of the world's coming on you, you don't have any energy, well, it could be part of that problem is the high delta. Now that could be because you're eating the wrong foods, you're not getting the right supplements. So it all plays into it because the brain will show it. But in the morning, let's say you get a great night's sleep, everything's going right. You're going to about 45% of your brain should be beta when you're awake, 30% alpha, and the rest kind of goes down like this, like maybe 10% gamma, 10 to 20% theta, and hopefully less than 10% delta. Mm-hmm. Now you've got an energy system. And we all know people like this. They never seem to get tired and things like that. Right. Every time we measure their brain, that's the brain we have. And we were fortunate at the company when I worked with them in the 80s, they hired a woman by the name of Ann Wise. She wrote a book called The Master Brainwave. And she traveled the world, and whether it was a guru, a captain of industry, a sports performer, an entertainer, whoever was at the top of their game, that's the brain pattern that they had. So most of our trainings are trained to that. But during the day, in the morning, we need more beta. But in the afternoon, it's very normal biologically. In fact, wherever you're at in the world, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, your temperatures are going to drop 2 degrees. Well, that's because our body is cycling all the time. And that's when these bodies, which were designed for the Serengeti, we should be taking a nap. But nobody has 4 hours. So we have a 20-minute session we compressed into a recovery. So we take people into recovery in the afternoon and give them the same energy signature that they would have in the morning. So they basically get 2 mornings. And then in the evening, because they say right now, if you're listening and you are getting a good night's sleep, congratulations. Mm-hmm. If you're not, that's because 2/3 of the world is not sleeping. That's why sleep watches or my Oura Ring or BioStrap or any of these things, people will monitor their sleep, because if you don't get the sleep, you don't get the neurotransmitters you need during the day, the next day. So it's going to throw off everything. It's going to throw off your energy, your focus, your concentration. all those things are going to
The
happen.
recovery and everything. So when you're talking about your audience, the usual person that comes to you, is it someone that's lacking energy or someone that just can't sleep through the night? And what are they usually coming to you and saying?
Right. Well, we have 2,400 clinics out there using it, so we have everything under the sun pretty much. We have 1,600 sessions.
Oh, wow.
But the primary ones that people come to, first of all, is sleep.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big issue. If you're not sleeping, really everything else you're doing, it's not going to work as well. You know, everything we do really is to get us a good night's sleep.
Right.
And some of that is just setting yourself up for success, you know, turning down the lights, you know, doing different things. And there's a lot of that out there, and we've talked about it before on other podcasts. But then the next thing is nutrition. The first thing we need to do to be healthy. So a lot of people come to us because they're overweight or they have some biological issue going on in their body. And so they come to us, and then our doctors will, whatever they're doing, we'll do a blood test maybe, or they'll do something to figure out, hey, how can we upregulate their there's 3 systems we want to work on all the time. Number 1 is the sympathetic parasympathetic load, but then there's the neurohormonal. Most people jump right to the neurohormonal because it's easier just to prescribe a nutrient. But if they're not getting brain fitness, so we always think nutrition first, then we have to have some kind of move and breathing work, like maybe you're going to do yoga, tai chi, dance, something to get your body up and moving. Most people today, unfortunately, are not. They're sitting all day long, and then they wonder why their nervous system isn't regulating. And then what we always propose is now you need some kind of brain fitness. What are you going to do to really work your brain? Now you're going to do those things. All the things I mentioned are going to help your brain. You know, every time you exercise, you're building your brain. You know, every time you're eating a good nutrition, you're helping your brain because your brain gets the first cut of everything. The first oxygen, the first nutrients, all the energy you put into your body, 20% goes directly to the brain first. Then the rest of the body gets the leftovers. So it's kind of like the king, you know, gets the first cut of the beef. You know, so everything is for the brain. And all stress is brain stress. It really comes down to that because we both know people like that love roller coasters. You might be one of them, but we also know other people would never get on a roller coaster. It scares the heck out of them.
Right.
It's the same experience. So one person can handle that kind of stress, the other one can't. So you have to figure out what that is. So the second biggest reason people come to us is the stress of their environment. What's going on? And a lot of them don't know that it's biological stress of the environment, like under the wrong lights maybe. I mean, we're doing some work with John Ott, who's the founder of the John Ott light generator. He's the one who really brought awareness to the world about light. And we have a little tool we have them set in front of in the morning when they're doing their reading for 15, 20 minutes. And it basically resets their circadian rhythm every morning. Once they do that for 21 days, the body remembers how to reset it. Because a lot of people are just so out of balance.
I see. So it's almost like retraining the body to get back to the foundational way it's supposed to be. Okay, very cool.
Yeah, these bodies are designed to wake up in the morning when the sun rises. You know, the earth gets warm. The kind of like my Euler pad that I have in my bed.
Yeah.
I have it set to wake me up when it wakes me up at 70 degrees. So I know, hey, if I'm laying there and the bed's warm, it's time for me to get up. I don't have to use an alarm, which is very bad for the nervous system.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So talking a little bit about the BrainTap device itself, do you guys run any kind of test or something like that generally for individuals that are starting the technology to see kind of a before and after, to just take a more objective approach?
Yeah, when they come to one of our clinics or they come to this event, we have 3 machines here that we can do a pre and post. Because it's one thing, we have a lot of research that we just published that's out there. We had 11 studies published over the last 2 years.
Nice.
But it's always good to have one for yourself. And when you come to the event, there's no charge for that. So, you know, you just by being here, you can have that scan. You can see what your nervous system's regulating like. If you're a biohacker, for sure, you want to know, hey, is it happening? And even though I love my Oura Ring and I love my BioStrap and all those, they don't have all the information that you'd like to look at.
Right.
So, and we can show you in 4 minutes basically how your body's regulating. And then whatever you do, we can show you if it helped it or not.
I got you. Okay, so just a curiosity question, because this is obviously mostly for adults out there that are maybe suffering from sleep or energy. Sometimes we see in today's world kids that are lacking energy or kids that are always sleepy or not sleeping well. Is there any kind of direction there with your company in terms of focusing on the children?
Yeah. Well, my first book was Awaken the Genius. It was all about, my whole business was accelerated learning and teaching.
Oh.
So because of my background of having trouble in school, so we have a whole series for that. We're in several more than several, but we have many different schools that use BrainTap. They use it for special needs where they could use it for everyone, but of course they're always going to have the money for the special needs. The biggest problem with kids is the same problem we have as adults when we get older. The dementia brain and the ADD brain look very similar when we see them on a QEEG chart. What we see is the left hemisphere is moving slower than the right. And when that happens, think of your brain, it's not just all the memories are stored back there in a filing cabinet. They're stored all over the brain holographically. And then we get a memory, like if I say, remember your favorite vacation, when you start to picture it, the sounds come in, the feeling comes in, all those come from different places and then are represented in the brain. So when you have when the brain is not synced, and just to give an example, the frontal lobe, which is our executive thinking, we see that gets out of balance. So let's say if 11 volts, because volts is energy everywhere in the body. Voltage is health, or energy is health, however you want to think about that, in the brain especially. So what we see is when the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere aren't balanced, the voltages will be different. That means the communication. So it's almost like you're in the same Wi-Fi field, but you don't have the password. So the information's there, and that's what frustrates people. They go, I know the answer. I know what I can do. I remember that, but I can't picture it. It's because the communication isn't there. What we found especially with kids, and we have many programs for kids to help them to develop that focus and that concentration. They don't need the SMR that I was talking about earlier. They just need a lot of alpha. That alpha is also for concentration and creativity. A lot of them have, if I do a scan on somebody and I see a higher amount of beta, but then they don't have any alpha and they have a high amount of theta, then I'm going to see an autistic brain.
I see.
Because we need alpha to mitigate, basically it modulates those two. Theta is more of a disassociated state, so even people like Dr. Melillo wrote a book called Disassociated Kids, and he didn't mention in there, but I traveled with him around Sweden. I said, Dr. Melillo, what's happening is they're in high theta. And then I showed it to him, and he goes, oh, yeah, you're right. But a lot of them don't have the equipment to actually diagnose or to see what's going on there.
Right.
I said, once you, in that population, once we got their alpha activity up to 23% of their brainwave capacity, we had 90% speaking in one of our trials. So speaking takes alpha. So those adults out there that might be wondering, what do you mean? Anyone who has a fear of public speaking because they've got up and they went to speak, but then they couldn't remember what they were going to say, that's because they probably were right brain dominant, which means they were emotional, and the logical part of their brain got shut down under stress. I do that all the time in my talks. I'll do it today, this afternoon when I'm speaking. I'll take them through a few different exercises so they can see which brain is dominant. Because until we teach our brain to work together, one brain, because the brain will shut down half of it because it's always trying to conserve energy. So these kids are stressed out in the classroom and they don't remember it because that part of the brain is actually shut down. And when you show it to them like with a QEEG, if somebody has like a neurofeedback device or something like that, they look at it and they go, oh, we've got to train that brain. The problem is they need so much exposure to it. That's where the light, sound, and vibration helps. With BrainTap is they like it. It only takes 10 minutes for a kid. They don't have to have the 20 minutes like an adult because adults need more theta. So if adults out there going, well, what do we need? The reason people aren't sleeping, if somebody tells me they're not sleeping well, they have high pain or anxiety, I'm going to show you somebody who doesn't have enough theta. And those people, we find that when you get up to 12 to 20% theta, they have no problems with sleeping anymore. Pain is diminished because the brain mitigates all that. Pain only happens, by the way, in the brainwave state of beta. So if you have a high amount of beta and you don't have a lot of alpha and theta to level that out, which actually makes neurotransmitters too, so for those that are familiar with those, when you're in beta, it's a dopamine high. That's why people have, a lot of our addictions are dopamine driven, like alcohol, drugs, video games, text messaging for those out there that do that. And then in alpha, it's acetylcholine. That's that neurotransmitter that the brain tells the gut to start to make. And when that starts to happen, they start to feel more relaxed, more pleasant. It's like when you're around one of your best friends and you're having a conversation. You're literally producing acetylcholine while you're there. But environments do that too, like the ocean is the example I give. And then we also have theta, which produces GABA. So if somebody tells me, I never dream, I can't visualize, I'm going to do a brain scan, and 99% of the time, I'm going to find somebody that has very little theta. GABA is the precursor to DMT, which gives us those experiences, those expanded states of consciousness and vision.
Psychedelics
Yeah,
almost.
yeah. A lot of the psychedelic drugs, they're really producing GABA. And GABA is a big one out there in the research. They're always trying to find a pill that does what our brain does. But the most powerful pharmacy is not Walgreens. It's between our ears. You know, if we can trigger that brain and hack into our own neurophysiology, then life gets good, it becomes good again, because we can't always be somewhere. And I'm a big proponent of nutrition. I don't think you could live this life without taking nutrition. You know, if you are, you're going to get sick very quickly, because even one of the speakers here this morning had an interesting talk about if you took all the foods and you try to figure out the nutrition value, it's actually different from California to New York. So you never know what you're getting. You know, you think you're doing really well, but you have to take something that's actually been weighed and measured and clinically proven, like the products we see here.
Right, of course. And going back to a little bit of the psychedelic part, the gamma rays and everything, we were speaking earlier offline, and you told me about the word and the phrase digital drug.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think is catching a little traction in terms of presenting this headset, this product, in a form that's not going to give side effects. And it isn't illegal. It's something that's going to push you into that creative state of mind. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, there's two studies I'll talk about. One is in Dallas, Texas, David Rosenthal. We were doing a psilocybin study with PTSD, and we had about half the group did not want to take a psilocybin. These were vets of foreign wars, and they just felt like they were going to be addicted, and they were off alcohol. So I said, okay, Dr. Rosenthal, let's do something. Let's do some QEEG readings while these people are on these trips. So we hooked them up, seen what their brain was doing on a psilocybin.
Yeah.
And what we noticed was a high amount of gamma activity. So that trig told me they're producing GABA. That's why they have these DMT experiences. And by the way, if you didn't know it, the only reason DMT works or psilocybin, all those, is because we have cannabinoid receptors, we have DMT receptors, we have opioid receptors. It's our brain doing it. The substance is just triggering our brain. So that's the hack. You know, instead of it just happening by accident, we're actually putting something in to cause it to happen.
It's designed that way.
Yeah, it's designed that way. And so what we did was I mimicked that. We now have, if those of you that have the BrainTap app out there, we now have a gamma series, 3 different series. But the one that's the gamma training, that's the one we used in the study, and people were reporting back DMT. They were reporting back psilocybin experiences without a psilocybin. And then that we were in Brazil, we're working with the university there, and the head of pharmacology came into the neuro lab and just was curious what was going on, because they're always trying to find drugs to do this. And they had him sit down, and they have our pre and post testing in the lab there. And they did a test with him, and he goes, wow, that did all that in that 10 minutes, they couldn't believe that happened. Yeah. He said, we've got to do some more experimenting with this. So he actually got Invisa, which is their FDA, and the government, through a grant, is paying $250,000 to prove out BrainTap as a digital drug. In fact, I just heard the results they're not published yet, because they're just putting because there's a PhD student who's using it as their PhD thesis.
Oh, cool.
But it'll be published, but it's been so successful, they already told us they're changing the name of their neurolab to BrainTap Neurolab in Brazil.
No way.
And they want to be the people in Brazil to take people off opioids and give them BrainTap. Because we had a study here in Texas at American Pain and Wellness where we took people who had botched surgeries, and within 10 weeks, as long as they did a BrainTap session once a day, these were people that no medicine would help them.
Really?
They were in pain after surgeries all the time, which is a severe case of basically the brain just overwrites the pain signal, and you can't take any medicine to help it. Oh. But after 10 weeks of using BrainTap, we were 93% of the people in the study, as long as they did a BrainTap session once a day, they could be pain-free.
Wow.
The other 7%, everyone in the study, when they were doing the BrainTap, they were out of pain, which makes sense. But 7%, we just couldn't get it. We couldn't make the movement in the 10 weeks of
That's still a very high percentage.
Oh yeah, they were blown away. They're like, I can't believe this. So places like Life University, who has a neuro center, if you go in there for their 2-week training and helping with neural function, you will leave with a BrainTap now. And we have several of these major neurological centers that are now doing that because it's so inexpensive. They can take it home and use it in between all the neural care that they're getting at the clinics.
So it's kind of like a newfound mission almost of taking those dangerous drugs away and substituting the healthy BrainTap in a manner of speaking.
Right. Just to give you an idea, when I look at, I'm always looking at ancient traditions, and I get to travel to India all the time too. We have a big study going on there with autistic kids right now at Nimitz Hospital. What we want to show is how do we take ancient traditions and make modern technology. And when I was in India, Dr. Vik Sharma, who's the head of physiology for the Ames Institute, he showed me in the Vedas, if you had mental disorder, what they told you to do is sit outside 2 hours before sunrise for Chronos therapy. Now there's no sun. So we know now, though, those 2 hours are when the most infrared light hits our planet.
Before the sun even comes up.
Before the sun comes, because it's dark. We don't see it, but they're doing infrared light. But they did this back 10,000 years ago in the Vedas. So how did they know that? You know, it's like but they found that helped the brain. It helped the brain function. So now we know, hey, if you come to the biohacking event, you'll see red light therapy and infrared light therapy and how it changes the brain. But this is really an ancient tradition. We're just showing how it's easy to do, and you don't have to go to a shaman now. You can just, go to your local health provider or even just go online because all this information is available.
Right. That's what's so great is this information and this type of technology is becoming more in the mass of things, and people are finding out more about it. So it's going back into what you were saying about the whole tradition, ancient traditions, and integrating that with technology and new data. How is BrainTap staying in the present, but also thinking of the future?
Well, we have a lot going on right now because we're very fortunate with the studies. We just put out 11 studies that have been published over the last 2 years in different periodicals, and I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg of what light, sound, and vibration therapy can do. Now we're dealing with the brain, but it can be done all over the body. There are other companies that are doing it. Basically we're talking about mitochondrial health. And most things that are hurting humanity right now are starving us of our energy. Whether it be just the toxic load that we have from the foods people consume to the toxic environment. I mean, there's a tool here that at the event that blew my mind. I'm actually wearing one of them. It's not our company, but I could actually measure a 30% neurological improvement just by wearing this. So there's technology out there that, it's here. When I found out about it actually last week, I told them, you need to be at this conference because these people need to know about it. And so once somebody learns it, it's almost like beads on a string. Somebody else will see it and go, hey, I think I can do it in this way, or I can do that.
Right.
And one other thing I like about the biohacking community is that they share. Right. And they brag it up. They get on social media and they say, here's what I'm doing. Look at my score, something like that. And I think that where we want to be is we want BrainTap to be the cornerstone of all wellness because everything you do, you need to have brain health. Now, it can't always be the side benefit. We all know people who started exercising and eating right, and their psychology changed, right? They're no longer depressed or anxious, and so their brain did get fixed. But what if you did them both at the same time? Mm-hmm. There'd be this massive movement toward true health, which is, all four phases: physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You get all those working together, and that's the synergy effect that I think that happens. So we're always looking at others. We also have a brain helmet. Our science officer. Two things I think would be interesting for the group here. Our science officer wrote the book for Dr. Hamlin, his chapter on photobiomodulation in the brain. He's the professor at Harvard. So we know a lot about photobiomodulation in the brain. So we have a helmet that you can wear our dementia study where we took the women off of the dementia scale in 6 weeks. And we had a 49% neuroplastic change in 6 weeks. Wow. And we balanced their brain in 6 weeks. All of that happened even without the light helmet. But when we moved that study up to Alzheimer's, what we found out was they didn't have enough energy to make the changes. Mm-hmm. So you've got to hit them with nutrition. You got to hit them with everything: movement therapy, nutrition, right. Some kind of build their muscle.
Hit it from all sides.
Yeah. And so what we're seeing, and now in the future, you'll see BrainTap will be built into some kind of neurofeedback device. That's what we're working on. And then number two, clothing. The clothing you have on. Most people know who Tom Brady is because the football, right?
Who's Tom Brady?
Yeah, he's now coming back again.
Yeah.
But his clothing, TB12, was actually designed by our science officer, and that's because the clothing has ceramics in it, and those ceramics actually reflect back our own infrared light. You can use your own light energy to heal yourself.
Wow.
I think that's another step of where we're going. So we can have clothing that not just protects us from EMF or whatever, but we can actually be wearing clothing. He calls it recovery wear, Tom Brady does, because every one of us, and one of the studies that just came out during the COVID experience was they can actually measure your light. You have a light coming from you. Every person does. If somebody's in a state of fear, anxiety, and frustration, depression, they have less energy. They actually showed that if somebody's in a state of grace, gratitude, love, harmony, they actually have 200 times more energy coming from their heart. Most of the energy is focused here because we have a magnetic heart that pushes the energy out. Our brain is electrical, so that's why you can't really think your way out of emotional states, because it doesn't have the emotion is always going to win because it drives behavior. But if you start realizing that we're all sharing this, now they know that light actually holds information. Even our light from our sun holds information. They know that. So we're sharing that information. So if there's any real reason to come to an event like this, is you get to sit in the fields of all these people that are improving their life. Mm-hmm. It's going to have an effect over just what you learned. You're going to have a physiological effect that will last the rest of your life, because we've all been to events that were life-changing. And it's usually not a movie. It's an activity that we go to and we participate in. And here you can go out to the playground here and start testing out these different biohacks. And it's more than just what you think. I think that's what we're finding out. And like even work with Deepak Chopra, we've had several meetings with him, because his new mission, it's always been his mission, but his new mission he's really focusing on is how can we take consciousness and quantify it? It's energy, so we don't know how to do that yet.
How do we put a number?
Yeah, how do we do that? Because we tell people, oh, that person's very conscious. And there's other people that seem to be not conscious. They'd be more hedonistic. Mm-hmm. And we also know some foods and beverages make you more hedonistic than, other foods and beverages. And so I think that's where I'd like to go. I think that because we're all on a one-way path. I mean, I'm not getting younger like Mork from Ork or something, in the TV show. I'm getting older. So we now know that, hey, we're all going to have our brain working till the older ages. And by the way, the ancient tribes never gave their history of the tribe to the young people. They gave it to the elders. Mm-hmm. That must mean that our brains were designed to be functioning and well into ripe old age. Mm-hmm. They didn't have a separate tent that they put the elders in, and they made them eat Jell-O, and didn't talk to them. They interacted. We also know, even with pets, if you have an older dog and you want that dog to live longer, get it a younger dog. They actually add 2 years to their life. Oh, wow. So imagine you're putting people into these old folks' homes or whatever, these convalescent homes, and nobody comes and visits them. They don't have any experiences.
Isolated,
and I think that's one of the things that I really want to see in the future, is because we're all going to get old. So why are we treating these people so poorly? Now they might have a really good experience, but most people, in order, like the Blue Project, you need to have community, just like we're doing here. We're meeting in person. We're shaking hands, we're talking to people, we're experiencing things. Yes. That makes a big difference in the way our physiology leaves that experience.
That's how we were created. We're social beings, right?
Yep.
We need it. So everything you're talking about is really quite astounding, I have to say. Going back to the point about how information is emitted and everything like that, we're definitely in the information age, but we're seeing some kind of transition, some kind of growth also in this realm of virtual reality, right? So we have metaverse and all these other types of things. So is BrainTap a player in that industry as well? Or you guys?
We've got a lot of things going in that area. Yeah. What we'd like to see, and I don't know how far off we are because I'm not a programmer in that realm. I just pay the bill. But in the process, we think that if you have like whatever virtual reality goggles you have, you should be able to do BrainTap with them. And I'm working with, we're doing a professional elite sports program study right now. You have to be a starter in one of the leagues, like NFL, NBA, or the hockey leagues. We're getting 20 of them together. We're doing a neuroprotective study. But part of it is I want to use their experiences in virtual reality. Could you imagine having a virtual reality goggle that you watched a professional tennis player do the right move? So your muscle memory, the neurons are now firing in virtual reality. Now, once you've got that locked in visually, it immediately changes to a BrainTap session where you're now practicing that. So because everything is spaced repetition. So how do you wire that into your physiology? You have to see it, you have to experience it, then you have to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna accelerate taking people from average to exceptional.
You know what it makes me think of actually is like the Matrix when he learned all the karate
Yes.
just by watching that
Right.
thing. It sounds just
Yes.
like that. You kind
I think it's the next step until they do. I mean, somebody probably hundreds of years from now or whatever will. You want to learn Tai Chi? Here you go. They just next thing you know, you got it, or languages,
right,
things like that.
But then it makes you question like, what about talents? Like, are people then born with talents anymore, or has everyone like become talented? Like, how does that work as a society?
Well, I think right now one thing, your genes do not make you.
right.
20% of your genes give us. Unfortunately, my grandfather was bald. My dad's dad had a full head of hair, but we get that from your mother's side. So that's 20% of who I am. I can't say I'm not my dad's kid. I look just like him. So there's different things like that. But when the 80% is what's not known, but now they know 99%. When they mapped the genome, and they said, "Hey, we mapped the genome," and they said, "No, we only mapped 1%." Well, could you imagine graduating from college and you only answered one question?
Yeah.
They couldn't answer the 99 back in 2003 because they didn't know what it was doing. Now we know. That 99 is changing at a rate of 40, every 40 seconds, your body is changed completely at the genetic level because it's expressing that 99% what they call junk DNA is changing. So I don't think anything is going to make your talents, my talents the same. It's because we're all different. It's kind of like you have 75 trillion cells that can all mutate every 40 seconds into something better than yourself or less than yourself. Because the food you eat, the people you talk with, the conversations you have, the experiences you come to, like just coming here is upregulating people's neurophysiology. And, we can measure that now. And they know that if you want to show up as your best self, you're going to biohack.
Right.
And you're going to measure and you're going to find out. Because you're a universe of one. No matter what anybody else has done, what is it doing for you? How is it affecting you? And they now know that happens at the speed of light. We have a nervous system, this electrical system, that's slow in comparison to the fiber optic system that works through the dura and through the fascia of the body.
Right.
That's like laying fiber optic cable. And that's how our body is communicating. But they all work together. It's kind of overlapping systems, just like for protection. But at the cellular level, we're changed because of light. Now, the reason that's important in mitochondrial health is that's the light source. If you don't have mitochondria energy, you can't transmit that information. So what happens is you transmit less information. And it's not the right information. Under stress, if we're stressed out and we're playing the telephone game and we're seeing who can do it the fastest, by the time it gets into that game, somebody's saying something totally different than the beginning. That's what's happening on a cellular level under stress. So if we can get the stress under control, at least have periods of non-stress and periods of stress, which is what we need, then our body's going to function better.
Fascinating. Yeah. So talking a little bit about the pandemic and how that's affected things, and we're social creatures, and this has given people a lot more time with themselves, obviously. Have you seen an influx of people that have come to BrainTap to try and control their mental state better?
Oh yeah, I would never wish the COVID experience on anybody,
Of course not, yeah.
but it's been the best thing for BrainTap.
Yeah, really?
It's one of those things because people now realize how stressed they are. There's something called psychoimmunology, which most people don't even know that exists. But what it means is that your psychology affects your immune function. So if you're under fear, anxiety, frustration, you've downregulated your immune system. The worst thing you can do for COVID is watch the news.
Oh gosh.
Because I always tell people, if you're too happy, if you're just so excited you can't stand yourself, just turn on the news.
Yeah.
You're going to be disappointed in less than 5 minutes. You're going to have anxiety, maybe even think about killing yourself. Because there's nothing, they're scouting the world for the worst news
Yeah.
to tell you about. I think that's why I tell people, coming to events like this, you come here because there's a lot of good stuff happening in the world.
Right.
But if you just stay in front of your television set and you believe that, and it's weird how they're all saying the same thing everywhere in the world. It's almost like somebody scripted this thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and the whole thing drives behaviors. They're driving the behavior of fear. And that's why I think Dave Asprey's fond of saying it's fear porn. You know, and people get addicted to it because just like watching an accident on the side of the road, people, they call them rubberneckers.
Yeah,
They're looking at it. I always tell people, if you're going to watch the news, which I have a couple friends that keep me in the loop on that, so I don't have to. They're kind of playing telephone tag. But if you have to watch it, do it early. That's the worst thing you can do right before sleep. Like, used to be people go, 10 o'clock I watch the news, then I go to sleep. Oh man, that's dangerous. Because the last thing you think about before you go to sleep is incorporated into your dreams.
Yeah.
You know, we've all fallen asleep like to a war movie, and then we're in the war in our dreams,
Right.
because our subconscious is always trying to figure out, what are we doing this for? What's going on? And it doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. So whether the pandemic is the plandemic or the pandemic, it doesn't even matter. It matters what the person viewing that believes.
Right.
And as long as they believe that they are not empowered, I personally believe that and this is the truth of the nervous system, it is self-repairing. It is powerful. When people like doing the breath work, like, I spaced his name, Wim Hof.
Wim Hof,
When
yeah.
Wim Hof can be injected with poisons and breathe his way out of them, people should be waking up.
It's
They're like,
astounding, yeah.
and he goes to these physiology labs and they go, how's this possible? How's this guy sitting in an ice bath and not getting these responses like this vagal resistance or something? You know, like some people, when they put their hand in a bucket of water, will pass out because of the response of the vagal system. But his is so powerful. We are far more powerful than anybody's told us about.
Right.
And if we believe what's on the news, that's pretty sad. And when now, I mean, everybody thinks it's science. Now Fauci's the science. That's a problem. I mean, the science is always questioning. Like, you can question anything I have. Just put it to the test.
Right.
You know, we always tell people, don't believe what I'm saying. Go out and test it for yourself.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, now they're saying, don't. This is fear. And the worst thing I think can happen to people is that you're diagnosed with something and told there's no hope. When you're told, go home, when it gets worse, come back, that's the worst thing that could have happened to everybody around the world. Because even if it didn't work, even if all the natural remedies didn't work, the one thing they did work on is hope. And they now know the placebo effect, which for those who don't know the placebo, that means you're just, your body's physiology is doing it, believing that it's going to work.
Right.
It's not a true, it's inert, it's maybe a sugar tablet. 40% of the time it works. They could have given these people sugar tablets and told them this is a miracle for COVID, and it would have worked.
Right.
That's how powerful our imagination is in our nervous system. But to just send them home and take away hope, that's the worst thing. And I believe that we're going to get through it, which we should be on the back end of that
Yeah,
now. And people are going to realize this was probably the worst con ever perpetrated on the people of the world. Because health is our God-given right. And we should be able to explore that. And there's a lot of biohackers that have a lot of great ways of sharing. As soon as they shared it online, what happened? Those biohackers got deplatformed.
Yeah. Censorship.
Yeah. So I think we should share. I mean, one of the nice things I like about this community is, and I'm not in the nutritional side, I do it for myself and I learn and I'm really interested, but they share. It's not just somebody's word for it. It's not just, when you look at the studies that are out there on pharmacy products, they're funded by them.
Right.
How can you trust that?
I know.
The 11 studies I'm talking about were all done in universities that we didn't fund.
Right.
So that's the kind of studies you want to see.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's really important what you said, like everything that you're watching, the news and everything like that, all of that goes into your head, your subconscious, and affects who you are, you know, in a way. So that's really interesting to note. I do want to say, for the pandemic, it's been hard for some people, it's been a blessing for others, but we are all in it together in a way. And basically being a service, like you're talking about, sharing the information, I think is what should be all of our mission, We just want to be a service to our fellow man, know, and make ourselves better every day in every way. So I'll give you the last word, Dr. Porter, if you'd like to say to anyone watching about how they can follow you, how learn more about BrainTap.
Yeah, they can learn more about BrainTap They can follow us on social media at BrainTap Tech or at Dr. Patrick Porter, at Dr. Porter, Dr. Patrick Porter. You can also get a free download if you want. You can go to braintap.info, get a free copy of my book, Thrive in Overdrive. You get to keep that book regardless of what you do. No credit card necessary, and you get 15 days on our app, so you can try this out. Now, it doesn't have the lights. You have to come to an event or go to one of our doctors, but at least you'll get an idea of what we're talking about. And we have proven that the sound alone does work. It's just the light works faster. So all of these, it's just like anything else. Some things work, just take longer to get the result.
Gotcha. Good deal. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
This is Dallas McClain, Biohackers Magazine, signing off. Join us at the next Biohacking Congress in Boston, June 11th, June 12th. Take care.